Now, the other big story this week, the chaos in Afghanistan as America's longest war ends with that country once again under the iron rule of the Taliban. Oklahoma's congressional delegation is speaking out on how the Biden administration has conducted the withdrawal of American citizens and Afghan nationals who have supported the U.S. Jason Doyle has a reaction from lawmakers and those who have spent time in country during the 20-year war.
It's hard to find an Oklahoman who has spent time in Afghanistan and feels the way the U.S. has left the country was the right move.
Those of us who spent considerable amount of time on the ground there are heartbroken seeing this. It's not a matter of the question to leave or to stay, it's how we're leaving. And how we're leaving is a disgrace.
This is an incredibly tragic situation, and we can have a discussion around whether or not we should exit Afghanistan. I think most people believe we should have. I think it's the manner by which we have exited.
They're a little disgusted at the way that we got out of there. Because normally, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make contingency plans to get out the American citizens and get out the Afghans that helped us, that will be at risk. We didn't plan for that.
However, President Biden claims it was time to leave after 20 years of war.
I stand squarely behind my decision. After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces.
Scott Deathridge works with veterans through his organization, Honoring America's Warriors.
Several that I've spoken to are some guys that have been seriously wounded. And literally have a lot of skin in the game. And when I approached them as if they were willing to kind of talk about it a little bit, I couldn't find one that was.
Deathridge said while the Afghanistan war veterans he knew didn't want to go on camera, they're generally falling into two categories.
There's two trains of thought for a lot of guys. One is we were paid, we signed up, we did our job, we lost some guys, which is part of the job. It's horrible, but we did. But we did what we were supposed to do, and we got back home alive. Then you have some guys that they're thinking, well, gosh, was this all for nothing? Well, no, of course it wasn't for nothing. It kept our country safe for the last 20 years. We haven't been attacked from terrorist cells in Afghanistan since then.
Mike Betcher spent time in Afghanistan reporting on the war. He produced the documentary The Hornet's Nest after spending 2 years embedded with U.S. forces.
I was really upset that Americans had forgotten about our soldiers and Marines and airmen and sailors in Afghanistan and left to make a film about what they were going through there on the ground and really, frankly, the hopelessness of this war. But at the same time, recognizing the heroic efforts our soldiers and Marines were undertaking on the ground.
He contends that the Taliban are now trying to put on a new face for the world stage.
Taliban's trying to put a new version of themselves out there, like we're going to give amnesty. They're not saying what that is. We're going to treat women differently than we did when we were in power 20 years ago, but women will have to live under Sharia law.
We tried to reach Senator Jim Inhofe, who is a ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, but he was not made available for interview. However, his communications office released statements which said, in part, President Biden owns this mess. The blood is on his hands. He had a choice. Instead of choosing the responsible approach, he chose to rely on political polls, not data from his military leaders and the intelligence community about the conditions on the ground.
I always promised the American people that I would be straight with you. The truth is, this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated.
Congresswoman Bice sits on the House Armed Services Committee, and she says the warning signs were there.
What we're seeing right now in Afghanistan is a complete failure and lack of preparation to withdraw, and the country has taken a swift turn, and we've got to figure out how to move forward.
Bice says now that the country has fallen into the Taliban hands, a new focus is needed.
The focus needs to be getting out the 5,000 to 10,000 Americans that are still left in Afghanistan, as well as the upwards of 70,000 Afghan translators, interpreters, and others that were helping the United States military.
However, some of those Afghani people will not be able to leave, like the women business owners who got help from the Institute for Economic Empowerment of Women.
We have almost 600 women who have graduated from the program.
Nee says the Afghan women who took part in the entrepreneurship program are there to support their country.
To listen to those women and how resilient they are and how hardworking they are and how much they want to do for their country is really incredible.
If they continue the good fight, so will the Institute.
We are all stepping back and looking at things and saying, we want to keep going. We want to educate more women, right? We do. We all want to educate more women. And so we are not leaving Afghanistan.
As the way forward for Afghanistan is clouded, some feel freedom still has a chance.
We have left behind the seeds of their eventual destruction. And that is the fact that millions of Afghans during the U.S. presence over the last 2 decades were connected to the outside world, finally. They saw that there's a better life out there.
Jason Doyle, the Oklahoma News Report.